Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Adam Winters. I'm Joe Gould, and we're going to find out if this year is without a Santa Claus.
Now, I had not realized it until I sat down to watch this movie all the way through for the first time. I thought it was just called Year Without Santa Claus. I didn't notice the indefinite article is part of this title.
Yeah, so we're looking at The Year Without a Santa Claus from 1974, produced by Rankin Bass, based off Phyllis McGinley's 1956 or 1957 book. Found two years there.
Did you have a chance to look through the book version of this story?
I did not. I did look up Iggy to see his origin story.
Ignatius.
Yeah, I have a screenshot saying a slight difference. So I do know they changed a few things here and there.
What's his last name, Iggy? He's like a thorn whistle? Or...
I think Thistlewhistle. Thistlewhite.
Thistlewhite. Is that a plant or something? A thistlewhite? Whatever that is?
I don't know. Who knows? See, Phyllis McGillicuddy would not have had Wikipedia back in 1956. So, it's hard to put too much stock in these names.
So I will add one thing before we kick things off. I thought this was the perfect movie to sneak in another question mark after the title, like Mad Monster Party did, because I thought it would have made a little bit more sense for this story.
Yeah, well, they pull the rug out from under you as they begin. They're going to tell you the story about the year that there was no Santa Claus. And then they just kind of flip it on its head at the end. It's like, oh yeah, that was just a joke. There's never going to be a year without a Santa Claus.
And even then, I felt like it was more of the week without a Santa Claus.
If that.
The 2 days?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, I do think the indefinite article is appropriate.
A Santa Claus. All right.
Yes. There's lots of Santa Clauses in this movie. Or attempts.
Well, you want to name them off? Or I'm only thinking of one other possibility here.
Well, you have the failed attempt of Mrs. Claus.
That's the one I'm thinking.
But you have all the children of the world, they basically recorded a Michael Jackson music video and were Santa Claus on the 24th for Santa.
That's a key point of the book. In fact, I think that is the critical point of the book when I look through that.
Is it a long book?
No, but I feel like the movie makes that a very, very minor part of this resolution. Even though it's essential, it doesn't spend much time on it at all. It just kind of happens.
Yeah. Do they sing an Elvis song in the book?
No, thank goodness.
Okay.
Blue Christmas. It might have been better if they built a little Elvis puppet. Because I don't know if you saw, there is a Charlie Chaplin puppet in this movie.
I don't know if I noticed that.
He was hanging out in Summertown, I think, in the crowd.
Summertown or Summerland?
Oh, good. Southtown? What is that place? That was not in the book. Southtown or whatever it is. Oh, there's so much in this movie. I just kind of wonder why.
No, it
existed.
I do feel like there was a few moments in this movie where the right hand wasn't talking to the left hand, or Mother Nature wasn't talking to the, talking to the left son instead of the right son.
I like the Miser Brothers. They're probably the best and most memorable thing about this movie, but I don't think the movie uses them well. And they are original to the movie, not included in the book at all.
No, the Miser Brothers, when you're looking back at your childhood, you remember the scenes with them. And you can't necessarily recall what the movie was about, but you just have those images in your head. And they're pleasant images. They're fun scenes.
Yeah, their musical numbers are great. I give the edge to Cold Miser because Heat Miser, by the time he gets to do it, it feels a little derivative. And he doesn't quite have the showmanship of Snow Miser.
No.
In my opinion.
The Ice Guy, he's definitely got the character. He's the showman. The Fire Guy, I'll keep my language clean since this is a children's episode, but, he's a smart aleck. A little angry.
He's just a mean guy.
Well, I think he's bitter. He hasn't felt appreciated. He says, Santa spends all his time promoting winter, and summer doesn't get its day in the sun, so to speak.
I think most people prefer the whole season of summer over winter in general. It's just winter gets to kick off with the biggest holiday of the year.
You know, now that I'm retired and I don't have to drive in the snow, I do have a stronger appreciation for winter. It
I've
it
always
always
liked it.
seemed to snow at night, and it would only be actively snowing on my way to work.
Yeah. Can't hear you now, unfortunately.
Can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Something's happening. It keeps. I'm getting notice.
You.
Heads up! New recording track created. Starting changes in your
Oh.
devices. I don't know if it's my device. I don't know
Oh.
if it's your device. I'm going to take it for granted that this episode works, but I'm afraid to click stop to redo it.
I've got the clock still ticking at the top of mine.
Yeah, mine's clicking too, so I think we're good.
Oh, lost you again. Can't hear you.
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. I'm going to end the session, and we'll start a new one.
All right.
And we're back. Hopefully, our technical difficulties are resolved. We believe they are from Louisville, but who knows?
I think it's the Wi-Fi miser or something like that. The 5G miser.
So, getting into the actual movie, it opens with a narration. This time, not a snowman, not a Santa, not a weird elf. So we got Mrs. Claus opening, and we're told that it's not yet Christmas, but it's past Thanksgiving, and she can't tell you the exact day.
She's pretty forgetful.
Yeah, maybe it's classified.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically are told that we're going to be told the story of the year without a Santa Claus. And it starts with Santa Claus waking up, and he's got a cold.
Among other things.
Yes. And he's kind of complaining. He's a little bit of a sourpuss today. There's basically something effective. Great North Star, I'm tired. Painting wagons red and bright. Sharpening ice skates half the night.
Mm-hmm.
Wrapping presents in ribbons and gauze has made me weary. Needs to work on that rhyme. Crinking my back.
He's got elves to do all that. I'm just saying, if the elves should
Delegation.
he should only do it if he enjoys it, you know? But go ahead. Continue the rhyme.
Sounds like he needs better help.
Yeah.
Crinking my back. Crinking my back. Cold in my nose. Aches in my fingers and all 10 toes. And a sort of kind of kink inside whenever I think of that Christmas ride. Lots of rhyming in this movie.
Can I interject here? Do you believe he has 10 digits on his feet? Because he sure doesn't have them on his hands.
You know, I was thinking to myself that this movie does solve one of those little things that you occasionally think about. It's like, is Santa human? Well, he's got 10 toes going on. So, you know.
Any animator will tell you 3 digits and a sum are much easier to animate on a hand than your traditional human hand. But it's odd because they acknowledge how many digits you're supposed to have in this movie.
Yes. So they show no feet. They didn't need to. He could have said in all 8 toes, or all 6 toes, or both toes.
Oh. So let me, this is important here. We're going to switch very quickly to a doctor visit, and that's not in the book. The book makes a bigger point of the fact that Santa is just tired, and he wants a vacation. This movie, I think, makes a bigger deal of him being really sick, and the sickness theme is carried over to other characters, at least one other in this movie, but we can continue from there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so the elf doctor comes in. He's a sarcastic little guy. So he does wish them a Merry Christmas. And he basically says, no wonder you're sick. You probably never got over that pneumonia last year. So so I agree with you. It's focusing more on the sickness than the tired. But I do think it's trying to push forward, like, Santa's worked himself into the ground. You know, he needs to rest up. His hit points are, at 2%.
Yeah.
Magic points unclear. And, he needs a recharge. He needs a potion.
Milk and cookies.
Milk and cookies. There's no milk and cookies in the show.
It's a letdown. There's not, honestly.
He does get either a coffee or a cocoa. Unclear.
Okay.
So then he basically says, I'm going to take the doctor's advice. Tells Mrs. Claus, I'm taking the year off. Ma. Why does he call Mrs. Claus Ma in these shows?
Is
that normal?
It's very rare you have any incarnation of Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus in the North Pole where they actually have kids, which might be a little bit more acceptable if their kids call them that all the time, so they just start doing it too. But very few Santa Claus takes go into that. So it is odd, I think. They're basically a ma and pa shop organization, right? A ma and pa store.
Yeah. Though, it may be appropriate for this movie, as we have Mickey Rooney voicing Santa, which he did in 4 different films. And in real life, he had 8 wives.
Oh, goodness. Was Shirley, who's Mrs. Claus in this?
Shirley Booth. I don't think that was an actual wife, but now he did have a lot of children in real life,
Okay.
but not with all of the wives.
Oh.
So I'm curious, as in the 4 movies for Rankin Bass he did, does Mrs. Claus look different in all 4 films?
Well, Santa Claus differs wildly from Rankin Bass film to film. I know, maybe we should get this out of the way, because Rankin Bass did a Santa Claus movie that came before this that didn't have connection to that McGinley book, or whatever it is. Santa Claus Comes to Town. That's the name of it, which is his origin story. Do you think this movie's connected with that one?
I don't think most of the Rankin Bass films have a connection. I mean, I think outside of the Rudolph and Frostyverse, I'm not sure that there's not a lot of characters that show up in multiple movies.
Oh.
So this one did get a sequel about 30 years later.
I'm interested in that, because it's all about the Miser Brothers, right? The sequel?
I think so. I know Mickey Rooney came back, and then the Miser brother who was alive came back. So there does seem to be continuity.
I had no idea there was that much a time difference between these movies. I just thought it was something Rankin Bass put out and got forgotten about until it got re-released on DVD. But was it 2000? Yeah. What year did that come out?
I want to say 2008, but let me check.
That is wild.
Yeah, 2008. Mickey Rooney was 88 when he reprised the role, and George Irving, 86 as Heatmeister, or Heatmiser, excuse me.
And wasn't there a live-action remake of this thing that everybody hated, which I never saw?
I didn't know that existed either. Ooh. And yes, had John Goodman in it. And
wow. Can you imagine?
Sounds like they sound very faithful to the original special, which doesn't necessarily surprise me, because that was back in the day of the Flintstone movies. And yeah, it didn't get good reviews. This one, though, the original, has 90% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm a little surprised at that, personally. It looks great. It's cute. But I guess it's the thumbs up or the thumbs down question on Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Yeah. Well, I think in the other way they gauge it was like 82%. So it's a well-liked movie, whether it should be or shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's cute. Right.
So we get newspaper headlines. Santa says too tired. The lower headline was Panic in New York. Menagerie breaks loose.
Can you remind me at what point in the movie the newspaper headlines splattered on the film? We talked about that a little bit in Rudolph. They started off the movie. But when do the newspaper headlines appear in this one?
Pretty early. It's right after Santa tells Mrs. Claus, canceling Christmas. He then gets on the phone and talks to his elves, and he tells them to spread the word. And I believe that's when the newspaper headlines.
That's interesting to me, that Santa's making a very big public show of this.
Well, if you're not going to have Santa one year, your constituents better know.
And then we introduce this problem, which is not in the book, that is very prominent in the movie. Is it because people around the world don't believe in Santa, or they just don't appreciate it? What's the issue that comes about here?
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit mixed messaging here. So it appears as though the world is fine with him taking a year off. As one kid says, it's not my business. And, Santa's for little kids anyways. So it's almost like as if they don't choose to believe in him anymore, but they recognize that he still exists and is giving out news bulletins, and basically the little 5-year-olds just aren't going to get their bikes.
Okay. I'm surprised
maybe they view it as the equivalent of the news tracker tracking Santa's sleigh on Christmas Eve. Oh, they may have a message, no Christmas this year, haha. And then maybe they just don't care.
Okay, huh.
Yeah, so then we get the introduction of the non-narrating Mrs. Claus, who's definitely just, she seems to want to be in everyone's business. We'll put it that way.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And she toys with the idea of just being Santa this year anyways. Just, fixing the problem just by doing it herself.
She will continue to try and do it herself throughout this movie with very mixed success.
Yes, and so she decides that's a bad idea. But then she decides, okay, maybe a better idea is to go find some evidence of holiday joy left over from last year to show Santa that people still care. And she finds Jingle and Jangle.
Ugh, not in the book. Not in the book. I'm just going to add that.
And she tells them that they need to go to the mainland, I suppose. I don't know. And then find this evidence. And they should take Vixen along with them, who is apparently the youngest reindeer and is at least gone to the main area once. As a movie made in the 1970s, it is just assumed that America is the only country in the world. So they're going to go to America, basically.
No doubt.
Let me ask you a different kind of question. Why would you name a reindeer in a children's story Vixen?
Because that's the way it has to happen, man.
Like, there's connotations on that word.
Well, of course there is, but that's the way it has to be. The bigger question is, why do you choose that one to focus on?
That one seemed to wander up at a bad time.
You talk about when they get arrested or they get cited in Summertown?
Well, maybe in
Southtown?
reindeer... Yeah, maybe in reindeer lore, Vixen was truly the youngest one. I don't know. The Rudolph would have been in the last one. So, anyways, she throws Jingle and Jangle on top of Vixen. Her quivery little legs flies them off to the U.S. And along the way, they run into the Miser brothers. The Miser brothers. If you want to call them Meisters. But
they're having a spat.
Well, the ice dude's not really bothering them. He's just kind of laughing. But Heat Miser decides this is gonna, they're part of the Santa Claus goody crew. He throws a lightning bolt, or no, not a lightning bolt. Basically, he uses a magnifying glass on the sun and fries their rear ends, and they fall and they land in Southtown, which is apparently not where they intended to go because there's no winter in the South.
Yeah, Vixen has to make a very dynamic move to catch the falling elves.
Yeah,
before they mangle their jangle.
It goes back and forth, but I think at this point we can say they go back to Mrs. Claus, and this may have happened right before, but they go back to Mrs. Claus, and she's being all kind of squirmy around Santa, and he recognizes that something's up, and he says, "Okay, what are you up to, Ma?" "Me? Up to something? Oh, ridiculous. Do I look like I'm up to something?" "No, you don't look like you're up to something. But whenever you look like you're not up to anything, you're up to something." And she confesses.
Well, they have a little wordplay about the some scene in the anything that I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah. And we find, though, that Santa is not so much mad at her for helping, but, she sent Vixen, that poor little reindeer, all the way to Southtown, and he knows that they're going to run into the Miser brothers, and that's just not safe. And that's when Mrs. Claus realized this was a stupid idea.
One mistake deserves a second mistake.
Yeah. So Santa gets dressed in civilian clothes, and he drives another reindeer. I forget which one.
It's either Dancer or Dasher. I think it's Dasher. The first one on Dasher, on Dancer. It's one of those two. Fully grown reindeer.
Yeah, an adult one. And they take off to figure out what happened. And see here. Again, this might be a little mixed up, but we discover Jingle and Jangle and Vixen going down the street in Southland, Southtown, Southville,
whatever.
South Park.
There you go. I like that.
He's getting a ticket from a police officer for a host of things, one of which is driving a Vixen the wrong direction on a one-way street, and for dressing in funny clothes on a Sunday.
We get that Sabbatarian law there. There you go.
Yep.
There was a third saying I saw too, but I forget what that was.
Yeah. So anyways, don't pimp your Vixen on the wrong side of the road in Southtown.
And so I guess the elves decide we need to disguise our Vixen, so they won't know it's a Vixen.
Yeah, you got to dress those appropriately.
Put some stockings on those ears.
Yeah, and they turn Vixen into the ugliest dog in the city. Doesn't work real well. They come across another lady, start asking her questions, and her purse turns into a cat and chases them down the road and up a tree.
Yeah.
Then they decide, maybe we shouldn't be working on these adults. Santa doesn't deliver adults Christmas presents for the most part anyways. Let's go with the kids. So on Sunday, where are you going to find kids?
In Sunday school?
Well, at a school.
Oh.
They go to a school. The only school in the country that runs on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And they find these kids.
I wasn't sure about that. I just kind of thought maybe just they happened to be there. There was a park. Was there a park nearby? I thought they talked to the kids at the park too.
Maybe.
Whatever.
So they get into a conversation with these kids, And here's where we meet Ignatius Iggy Thistlewhite.
Yeah.
And we don't know that he's important yet, but he becomes important. Matter of fact, I don't even know if we know his name yet. Oh, I think he reveals that later.
The narration says he's going to be more important than you think.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
that comes
Mrs.
out.
Claus, she knew. Yeah. And they ask the kids what they think about Christmas and Santa taking the year off. And they're like, that's fine. None of our business. He's for the little kids anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And besides, you got bigger problems than what we think about that. Your dog's getting catched by the dog catcher right now. And they turn around, and the dog catcher is throwing Vixen in the back of the van, and they drive off, and the elves follow along. So they're not having a good day.
This is sort of the worst case scenario for any all ages family movie when a dog gets caught by a dog catcher. And surprisingly, this will become the central plot point of the rest of the movie, even though it doesn't really have to be.
No, it's that my main problem with this movie is ultimately they go off and do something because the dog was caught that they didn't really need to do.
Yeah.
But because they did it, it fixes the main problem at the end. So it's just kind of weird. I mean, it works, but it's like it's just not necessarily rational.
So has Santa showed up in Southtown yet, or is he? What happens first? Do the elves go to the pound and talk to the dog catcher, and then talk to the mayor? What's our sequence here?
Well, that happens off screen.
They don't talk to the dog catcher. Oh, they don't show us though.
Yeah, So they show Santa, and he might have had one other interaction. I think he sees the cop that gave him the ticket. But anyways, ultimately he ends up at Iggy's house, and he asks Iggy if he has seen two little funny dudes. And he says, "Oh yeah." And then Santa sneezes real big because he's got a cold. And then Iggy's mom pokes her head out the window and says, "Iggy, what are you doing?" And he says, "I'm hanging out with this old guy." And
describe his outfit. Describe Santa's outfit here.
I mean, he's got some pastels going on. He reminds me of St. Nicholas in The Miracle on 34th Street.
Original or 1994 version?
Whatever. Probably the original, and I can't recall what he looked like in the 94 version.
He was the guy from Jurassic Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Richard something bottom or whatever. Okay, I thought he looked a little bit too colorful. I know Rankin Bass loves their colors.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that one episode of King of the Hill where Snoop Dogg guest starred as Alabaster. That's what it reminded me of. You know the one I'm talking about.
I do. So with her good motherly instincts, she invites Santa inside so that he can't abduct her child. And they give him some hot cocoa / coffee / something. And they all sit and they have family time at the dinner table. And he asks, it ultimately comes up to Iggy's like, "I don't believe in Santa. Do you believe in Santa, Santa?" He says, "Oh, I do." And then finds out his dad also believes in Santa. And he sings this weird song, probably my least favorite in the movie. It makes the little boy cry at the end. And he realizes the error of his ways. And then he remembers that he didn't tell Santa what happened with the two little elves. And that they were heading off to the pound because their dog got taken away. Santa freaks out and says, "Oh no." So he charges out of the house, jumps on his reindeer, and flies away.
That should have given them a clue what they were dealing with here.
Yes. And that's when the kid realizes that Mr. Claus, or Klaus, or however he said it, was really Mr. Claus. And he decides that he probably should go help the elves. Or his father tells him he should go help the elves, and he agrees it's a good idea. And I'm not sure exactly how they communicated it. Maybe it was narrated, but it's revealed that the elves had gone to the pound. They couldn't pay the fine, so they told the elves, "You should go get with the mayor and see if he'll waive the fine of some sorts or offer some other kind of help."
Keeping it legal.
Yeah. So Santa, he goes to the pound, pays the fine, and Vixen is free.
See, the answer is all it takes is money. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Why are two elves flying across the country without taking their checkbook?
I guess Mrs. Claus is either really cheap or it's Santa who controls the purse strings, so to speak.
Using that business credit card.
Watch what John Travolta. That's the John Travolta Santa. He's into that Capital One business.
Yeah, that's true. So Santa takes Vixen home, and he tucks her in.
We should mention she's sick because of the climate change.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, yeah. So Vixen is sick, not feeling well, looking pretty droopy looking. and so she needed to get out of that vet or out of that pound. So, all right, well, I should back up. So the elves go to the mayor and they make a deal, and they say if they can get it to snow on Chris, or he asked them to do it, but basically if it snows on Christmas Day in Southtown, then he will make it a national holiday for Santa and free the dog.
Again, a major plot point now has been established that is already resolved. But
and we get another song here. It's going to snow right here in Dixie. This guy is very excited about something he doesn't believe is going to happen.
That's what I didn't get, because I thought he was just trolling the elves. And later on, he even says they weren't pulling my leg. But then he goes public and tells his citizens, we're going to have snow. Now, unless he's a 100% true believer, that's going to be politically a mistake for him to do that.
Yes. And it's a little odd. The song's fine in of itself. It's just when you think about the placement of it. Nice little snow effects where he uses props to make it look like it's snowing. And then we get, that's when Santa takes Vixen home. And, oh, one more thing. They decide they're going to need help.
Jingle jangle.
Yeah, Jingle and Jangle realize that they're in the jungle. And they call Mrs. Claus to see if she can assist. So Mrs. Claus leaves a letter for Santa saying she's going to go help with the situation. Santa gets back, tucks his Vixen in, sees the letter, and says, okay, I can go back to bed. I'm not feeling good.
Right on, Santa. You've had quite a day already. Which reindeer do you think Mrs. Claus took to get down to Southtown? Or whatever it was.
I don't know, but it had to be stupid to agree to go with her anywhere. Ditzy.
Well,
Ditzy
she probably doesn't go to Southtown. Does she meet them somewhere?
She picks them up in Southtown.
Okay.
Yeah. Because she actually has a sleigh. She just riding the back.
Okay.
So she says, we're going to go to the heat miser. I'm sorry, the cold miser.
Snow miser.
Snow miser. There we go.
There's no miser like snow miser.
Yes. So they go to the snow miser, who accidentally offends them. Iggy gets real upset. And he's like, whoa, I love Santa. He's great publicity. And he does the song and dance routine, which is great. Are you prepared to sing it?
I'm Mr. Hold on a second. Because he doesn't say snow miser until later.
I'm Mr. White Christmas.
White
I'm Mr.
Christmas,
Snow.
That's it. Yeah. I'm Mr. Icicle. I'm Mr. 10 Below. My friends call me Snow Miser. And he goes on to make a remark after his chorus joins in that he does not like any day that's higher than 40 degrees. And preferably he'd prefer it much colder, but he draws the line at anything over 40 degrees.
Yes. He also has these little minion looking things that are basically miniature versions of him.
Mm.
And it's a nice little routine.
Oh yeah. This is his time of year. He's excited about it.
And so Mrs. Claus gives her a request. He says, I can't do it. I would, but I can't do it. That's heat miser territory.
I like this
You learn that the Mason-Dixon line basically applies to these two guys.
This is the most interesting thing, that they have territories. And in some ways they respect each other's territory, but if the opening scene is any indicator, or the earlier scene, occasionally they conflict about where the dividing line ought to be in their territories.
Yeah, or they'll just do one randomly to see if it can get through, and it never does.
Mm.
So she says, okay, well, we'll go talk to him. And basically, Snow Miser says, good luck with that. This guy's a jerk.
Yeah, he is.
Boy, he is. He is. And he's got his own song that he's singing when they get there. And
same melody, same beats.
Yeah. So I think the first line of this song, though, is kind of lame. If there's more meaning to it, I don't get it. I'm Mr. Green Christmas. I'm Mr. Sun.
Yep.
So I assume it just means grass. But
yeah, he's a little bit weak in his. Yeah. And then he says, "I'm Mr. Heat Blister. I'm Mr. 101." And I don't know. Basically, he lives in Bowser's fortress here. And that's the first thing I thought of. I said, this is a Mario Brothers boss level.
It could be the volcano for Mad Monsters.
And the Snow Miser said, everything I touch turns to snow in my grasp or in my clutch. Da-da-da, I'm too much. And so the heat miser says, everything I touch melts in my clutch. I'm too much. So again, he feels more derivative of Snow Miser, but his lyrics are not near as good. And you just kind of feel like he sends mixed messages. Now, he says he doesn't like any day that is below 60 degrees. He'd prefer something over 100, most likely, if he's going to melt stuff. Who do you think can control the territory in between 41 degrees and 59 degrees Fahrenheit? Because that is not spoken for by either miser.
No, and maybe that's the area where you have the war zones.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. Now, I will say, I'm not sure too many of those areas exist. Because every time it gets to be between 40 and 60 around here, it quickly just continues on to whatever direction it was going. And that's why spring and fall in Tennessee and Kentucky are about, a week and a half.
Well, maybe that's just the miser brothers fighting for control, and one quickly overcomes the other.
I wonder if they got some kind of timeshare situation going on.
See, this to me is more interesting. This is more interesting to me than the rest of the movie. The whole miser brother territory divisions.
I don't know. Anyways, she asked him for help. He says no. And then he thinks about it and says, well, they can have snow in Southtown for one day if I get permanent residents of the North Pole. That's how it's framed, at least.
Yeah, he wants the whole caboodle there. He wants hotels on Boardwalk and Park Place.
Yes. And she says she'd have to consult Santa about this. But then she goes, we need to call Snow Miser anyways, see if we can make a deal. So they pull up the first iPad, and
it's a video call.
Video call. And very quickly, they get into an argument and start shooting stuff through the screen at each other.
Impressive.
It is. And then we abruptly or basically she says, well, I'm going to go over their heads.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Bold, Mrs. C.
Yeah. And they make a visit to Mother Nature.
Where does she live?
She looks like she lives in a leprechaun valley. Very green.
She happens to be the actual mother of both misers, which is funny. But, makes sense, I guess.
It kind of does. So she has a chat with her over tea, I think. And she says, I'll take care of this problem. And she calls both her sons. And they lightning bolt down. And then let me make sure I get this right. Where you can edit for later. I made the quote. Okay. So she looks at Snowmeister and says, now, you let a little snow fall in Southland. And then she looks at Heat Miser, says, you allow just one nice spring day at the North Pole. All you have to do is compromise this time of year, especially at this time of year. Now, do you see a problem with that?
Well, in my mind, I thought the movie was going to go a different direction. This might be different than what you were speaking about. I thought just as soon as Santa got Vixen home to the cold, this was going to throw chaos into the whole North Pole. And everybody was going to start catching cold because it was too warm. That wasn't what you were thinking of?
No, I think we have an animation error.
Oh.
She asked Snow Miser to allow a little snow to fall in Southland. And she asked Heat Miser to allow one nice spring day at the North Pole.
Yeah, okay.
She's not telling them to do the snow. She's telling them to let the other person do what they want to do.
Compromise. It's a very...
Yes, but she should have been looking at the other child each time.
Okay. You knew what she meant, though.
But it's a pretty big error. They could have gone back and redid the dialogue.
They could have.
So, and then we basically have a time jump, and it's snowing in Southtown, or South Park, or Southville, or Southland, or whatever it's called. But she also calls the city the wrong name.
No.
She does say Southland. And we see I think there's another paper. Oh, okay. Yeah, so the kids are playing in Southtown. The mayor finds out it's snowing. He holds up his end of the bargain. They don't mention the dog, but he names it a national holiday for Santa.
Mm.
And it's a legal holiday, and goodwill is in the hearts of men. It's been proven, and the world decides to give Santa the vacation he wants.
This is all happening very quickly between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I gotta add.
Yes. And then we have the Michael Jackson music video where all the children of the world come together, and they all travel to the North Pole to deliver letters and presents to Santa on the 24th. Happy birthday, Santa, basically.
How did they get the stuff to the North Pole? I've forgotten about that. I saw the children walking all over the globe, and I got a little distracted, saying, "Oh, this is more symbolism than what's actually
They
happening."
conveniently left out any background image that would have been helpful in showing how they did this. They were
Now
just basically loading up presents in a sleigh.
they detail it in the book, and again, it's a bigger deal. This whole kids giving Santa Christmas. That's the main thing of the book. Whereas in the movie, it's there, but you're thinking, how? Why? What?
Yeah, and then we get another mixed message. So all the children are saying take the year off, except for this one little bratty kid, this one little girl. And instead of writing Santa a letter saying thank you for all the good work you do and the hard work you put in, she says it's gonna be a blue Christmas without you.
That's all I remember from that. The little tears, the blue Christmas tears dripping from her eyeballs as she's writing it. Banshee
Yeah.
tears, I say. She wants gold. She wants gold for Christmas. That girl is the Banshee in disguise. That's what I say.
So Mrs. Claus and the elves are very excited to show Santa all the presents that all the children gave him and how they basically said, you can have the year off. And then he says, I'm sad. I just read this letter from this little girl, and it will not be a happy Christmas unless I am Santa Claus this year. And he puts the elves back to work.
That man has lingering walking pneumonia, so far as we know.
Allegedly. And then he says, God bless my soul. By the big morales and by the maps in my charts, I didn't know children had such kind hearts. How could a man feel gladder and prouder? A holiday? Nonsense. Fetch my coat. Never felt younger or stronger. No symptoms any longer.
Yeah, man. That's from the book. Definitely.
And it turns out that there never really was a year without Santa Claus. And we get the Here Comes Santa Claus song. We see Iggy get a bike.
Yeah.
And then they do the closing song, which is a reverse of the intro song, basically exclaiming, there will never be a year without Santa Claus.
And Southtown constructed a Santa Claus lane so we can get the song, Here Comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
Yes, and credits.
Yeah. Do we go back to Mrs. Claus, the future Mrs. Claus, for closing narration? Do we get a closing narration by...
She narrates a little bit, but I think they end with the song.
Okay.
I think.
Hey,
I think they're singing in the song.
I noticed Santa does use 8 reindeer throughout this movie.
Well, they made some money off Rudolph, and they were able to construct that final one.
And did you catch Vixen in the lineup? Is she there with the smaller antlers?
I did not look for that. I'm not sure on that one.
I think she's in the right-hand side lane. Maybe the third one back.
It'd be pretty lazy for them not to include her.
She's sick, though, isn't she? I guess she's better. But, oh well.
Let's see here. Is there anything I haven't brought up? So we've discussed Snow Miser versus Heat Miser. The characters, Snow Miser is infinitely better in this movie.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
We discussed the problem with the North Pole. It seemed to shift. Early dialogue indicated that the North Pole was going to be a permanent casualty, but then Mother Nature stepped in with some common sense and said, you get it for a day, which they don't show. That's never paid off.
That's weird to me. And it's a missed opportunity, too.
They needed to show Santa in a bathing suit and on a boondoggie.
So here's something that's important when we talk about book-to-movie adaptation. In the book, Santa wants a vacation. Now, he never takes it. But it comes up again that he wants not just time off because he's sick, but he needs a vacation to really recharge his batteries. Now, he never goes on one in the book. It's more of a staycation. He's just kind of laying around until he gets all the presents and he changes his mind. But this movie could have really had fun with that idea of Santa Claus just doing his thing, going on vacation, living it up, and then he has a change of heart. It would have been something the book pointed at, but never gave us. And this movie could have done that very easily.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just stayed in Southtown, Southland, and kind of had a little mini vacation down there, found the South Park beach.
Yeah. He could have been surfing. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Surfing Santa?
Surfing Santa? I don't know. Maybe he was planning a big New Year's party with Rudolph.
Oh, man.
So there's quite a few songs in this movie. Do you have a favorite?
Snow Miser. Top of the list.
Snow Miser. Okay. That's an easy one.
It's the only one I'm going to pull up on YouTube just to listen to the song. Again, this movie promises a year without a Santa Claus and never delivers, so I'm not particularly interested in that song because it's just, it didn't happen. It just teased me.
So this special aired in 1974 on ABC. It's unclear whether or not it got aired frequently after that. Eventually, it got picked up by Freeform and AMC and all those Christmas blocks no one watches anymore because we have it on disc.
Or streaming, right? I don't know if this is available on streaming anywhere. Warner Brothers
probably is.
Warner Brothers is the current copyright owner, as I recall.
Yeah, they own everything post 1974, so this was maybe the oldest thing they own from Rankin Bass.
Okay, so they don't own Santa Claus Come Into Town then. That's somebody else.
I can't, unless it came out the same year. They did the complete Christmas collection is a group effort between the two companies.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think I see that particular thing on here. But yeah. And it got some various VHS releases.
Fascinating. I have it on a disc with it's a Warner Brothers release. Probably came out about 2011 or so, but it includes Rudolph's Shiny New Year and Nestor the Long-Eared Donkey. Those are the two other things, but I'm not aware if it has any other special features. At least I didn't pull them up.
And then, like we said, there was a live-action remake in 2006, and it was described as a nauseating, angry, joyless little holiday confection sure to poison any child unlucky enough to chance upon it. This hate-filled stocking stuffer has nothing but contempt for its intended audience, promoting the worst possible beliefs about people, while cloaking itself incredibly in the fake guise of a meaningful lesson about the holidays. The gall that the cretinous makers of this film have is quite audacious.
That's a lot to say.
That sounds harsh.
Yeah, okay. I guess that guy really liked this one. Santa comes across as a little bit better than he did in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, simply because he's the only one in this movie who's not an idiot, even if he is struggling to be appreciated.
Well, he shows real concern for Vixen. He's sick. He still goes and rescues her.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't come across as a hero. He comes across as tired and needing to be inspired. And the kids in the whole world don't come across very well initially. They come around.
Yeah.
But Klinkle and Dinkle, I mean, they weren't helping much. Then, yeah.
So really, it's all because of the news media, I guess. They publicize. I guess Santa got what he wanted. He publicized his deal.
Well, like a modern politician, he used the media to broadcast his message for his own gain.
All right,
sure. And then you still got to work in that sad little brat girl, though. We won't let him have a year off. But
Banshee tears.
So how are we going to rate this one? This is out of 5 Vixens or
Blue Christmas tears? We're going to give it Blue Christmas tears. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 because of the Snow Miser and to some degree the Heat Miser. He's a necessary character. I get why he's the lesser of the two, but they pulled it up to 3. Were they not in this movie, this would be a really boring movie, and it would be in the 1.5 star or tier territory, I think.
Ooh, yeah. Well, in my mind, it's a tough one because I'm going to give the Snow Miser at least a 4-star, or at least for his performance. But the movie itself, I was thinking about giving it 2 out of 5. I think I can up it to 2.5 out of 5 because it looks nice. Yeah, it's rough in parts though.
Harley,
if I were on Rotten Tomatoes, I'd probably give it the thumbs down and just say, watch the Snow Miser in your own time.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, Snow Miser is the man. Heat Miser, he tries. I'm interested in Iggy. I think he's kind of fun, but it might just be his name. Dingle and Dangle, I mean, they're not noteworthy characters. Mrs. Claus is annoying. Santa, Mickey Rooney's voice is nice, but there's just not a lot of plot going on. So I think without that conflict with Mother Nature,
and the plot that is going on doesn't go anywhere. So as an adaptation of the book, and I felt I was probably harder on this movie after I looked the book up, because the book is not particularly exciting. And I think if you were going to do a straight adaptation, you'd do it in the 20 to 30 minute block. But this movie is how long?
It is, I think, 51 minutes.
Not too bad, but again, if they're gonna extend it and work in the Miser Brothers, it just doesn't achieve what it sets out to do, other than giving us a very memorable Snow Miser jingle. Jingle and Jangle, I got nothing for those doofuses.
No, I mean, it's just I never felt bored in the sense of like this movie's taking too long, but I would
Yeah,
have without the Miser Brothers. There just wasn't a lot of action.
fair
Uh,
enough.
so what did I say? Two out of five? Is that what I
You gave
said?
it
Two and a
three.
half?
You gave it
Three?
three
Oh,
because
because
the
of the
Miser
Misers.
Brothers pulled it up to
Yeah,
something more.
yeah. 3 for the
Up from
Misers.
1.5.
Yeah, it would have been a bomb. I don't know if we've reviewed a movie that low.
No, we watched the 1990 Captain America movie.
That's true. That's true. But
Mm.
so next week we haven't talked about what we're doing.
I think we ought to
Ernest?
do Ernest Saves Christmas. That's what I think we ought to do.
Yeah. So next week, Adam's gonna be in town, I think.
I hope so. Yeah.
So maybe we can do it live, not in 2 microphones, where the editing gets funny.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well. I forgot to mention. I got 2 new additions to our household. One came out this year, and I had not heard about it, but it's pretty neat. Godzilla, the Encyclopedia.
Oh, published in Japan or America?
America.
All right.
It's a very odd title. Godzilla, no colon, the Encyclopedia. Written by Shinji Nishikawa, and they got all the characters, all the suits. They show you how to draw the different Godzilla costumes.
Oh, very nice.
Lots of colorful pictures. And then just came in today. I got the omnibus. Godzilla, the original Marvel years.
Are they in color or black and white?
I haven't opened it, but it says it's in color.
Ooh, that's nice.
On the back. All hail the king of the monsters. Godzilla, the towering scourge of Japan, wreaks havoc in the United States and crosses paths with the Avengers in the Fantastic Four and classic Marvel adventures reprinted in full color for the first time. Issues 1 through 24. Nice. This is probably a Christmas present to myself, so I'm not going to get to open it until Christmas. I did kit it out of packaging to make sure it wasn't damaged.
No, it's a fun little run. The Marvel years of Godzilla.
He's aged better. Like, it's aged better with time.
Well, the most interesting thing about the whole Marvel Godzilla is that Toho uses a Marvel Godzilla silhouette as the official icon logo for Godzilla.
It is interesting. I'm more intrigued by the fact that he has a beer belly.
Well, sure.
It's a very interesting way to do it. It's like very lean on top and the arms and the face.
Hanna-Barbera Godzilla did that too. That was common anytime you'd make a giant character. You just make them very heavy at the bottom and round.
Yeah, I still think there's a very unique look to him. Anyways, after the Sony disaster, everybody loved this one. Well, Adam, any closing thoughts on the year with Santa?
Without a Santa? Or the year with a Santa?
With multiple Santas, really.
Yeah. I'd never watched this all the way through. I guess it just didn't hold my interest when it was on TV. And even at 50 minutes with commercial breaks, that can be asking a lot, I suppose. I don't know. I'm interested enough to watch the sequel, the 30-year later sequel with the Misers. So maybe we can squeeze that in, and maybe we'll find a way to do that.
Yeah. The other question is, how hard is it to find?
I have it on DVD. I don't know why. I don't know when I bought it, but I got it laying around. I guess I can bring it with me.
All right. You can buy it for $9 on Amazon.
Sounds a bit much. I paid much less for mine.
It doesn't look like it would be a new movie. They did a good job making it look old on the front.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I was surprised at that.
45 minutes.
That's tight. Yeah. It's all right. Maybe we can find a way to do that.
Yeah. You should bring it with you.
I'll try to remember that. Yeah, I'll look into
whether it works out or not, we'll see. But yeah, you should bring it with you. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming to the podcast. Give us positive reviews. Only good ones, though. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.